You know, it's weird how these progressive companies in California all seem to end up being guilty of the worst things they pretend to be against. These companies, run by and full of male feminists, that virtue signal constantly about how they're against sexism and always trying to help out women and having the rainbow flags everywhere in June, talking about racial and sexual diversity and posing for their diversity photo ops, calling other people misogynist and racist and everything on their social media while they post about how much they care. Even being located in such a progressive state, somehow all these companies end up being full of scumbags. And it's not just the gaming companies, look at Hollywood. Despite their claims of virtue as being great feminists and everything, Harvey Weinstein was a big feminist figure that won awards for how much he supported women. He hung out with Oprah and everything. But then one woman didn't go along with it and leaked it to the public. Now the open secret in Hollywood was open to everyone else. And then they all came out decrying it after all that time. And with the gaming industry, it's not just Activision Blizzard. Even recently there's been Riot. Yet again, heavy virtue signaling at the most recent E3 despite leaving the scumbags in high positions on their payroll, as if they care. Ubisoft has been going through shit, and yet somehow, there are people who think they just need to keep doing what they're doing, but go even further. The shit that's clearly full of degenerate predators. The things they use to cover what they do from the public and get praised for it. Just more of that. And if you didn't know, many people in Hollywood, many progressive politicians, and the guy in charge of Activision Blizzard have gone to Epstein Island. They were on the flight records, the pedo island that was just an evil conspiracy theory until it couldn't be contained anymore. Yet there's been no repercussions for these people. Things just go on as normal. They stay rich, they keep their social power, it doesn't matter. Back to the masses such as ourselves, though. Have you noticed the weird push for what people call sex work in the past couple of years? These progressive male feminist types, and a lot of female feminists, pushing OnlyFans as some empowering great thing to do, encouraging girls to join a porn site as soon as they turn 18 to start selling their bodies. This, of course, not only absolves the dudes paying for it and passing it around openly on social media, on their main verified accounts, of any shame or accusations of misogyny. It bizarrely is a show of how progressive and open-minded they are. And the older women encourage younger women to sign up with their referral links so they get a cut of the profits. Yet they're just trying to promote an empowering way of making money that is just as respectable as any other sort of work. Where I'm going with this is, in Activision Blizzard, one of the worst parts of the case is a woman killing herself on a company trip after constant sexual harassment. This included passing around nude photos of her at the office. This sort of behavior is already not only accepted in these progressive circles you see on social media with live streamers, people in the industry and everything, but as I've said, seen as proof of what a good person you are. Yet people wonder how things like this happen at these progressive companies, how this sort of thing is allowed to be so prevalent for so long. And it's not just a recent thing. I remember prominent figures being open about how much they like porn sites like Suicide Girls. It was a thing these people kept talking about a long time ago. It's just gotten worse, more pervasive, more accepted as time has gone on. If almost everyone would be disgusted with a guy spreading around a woman's nude photos at the office, or trying to, if they would think he was a piece of shit and were outraged about it, that shit would have been shut down instantly, at worst. And at best, the guy never even would have tried it because he'd know what would happen if he had any sense. Spreading around a woman's nudes, even on social media, posting about paying for a fellow streamer's OnlyFans, that sort of thing should be embarrassing. It shouldn't be accepted. And it especially shouldn't be met with a defense force praising them. Perhaps someone would argue I'm wrong and shame is the reason for the suicide. What is that argument? That constant sexual harassment and abuse only makes people miserable because it hasn't become accepted as normal yet? Problem is passing around a woman's nudes, even a coworker's, has become accepted. We don't need to condition people to accept a terrible environment. We need to make the environment less terrible. It's bizarre. You see a lot of these people, men and women, posting about how they're offended about a fictional female character from a video game or a show being too scantily clad, or having breasts they consider too big, being too skinny, being too sexualized, on and on. But then they'll turn around and support women selling their nudes and everything. Go on and on defending it, and somehow call anyone arguing against them misogynists. How is it hurting women when a cartoon character has big breasts? I don't know. How is it empowering women to encourage 18-year-old girls to start selling pictures of their breasts and spread it around social media? I don't know. If I had to guess as to how they could think such ridiculous and contradictory things, or rather why, I think it's because the first, complaining about fictional characters being too sexualized, Pretending they love every shitty movie with a prominent female character Hollywood makes, all of that, is a cover. It's not that they actually believe it, it's performative. This is supposed to give them brownie points, a sort of social protection, a cover for the shit they do. The second, the support for actual real-world objectification of actual real women, is to normalize their behavior, push acceptance of it in society, make it culturally accepted and actually the norm. You see, it's clearly happening in these companies and in Hollywood. They want that everywhere. They want what is acceptable to be pushed even further. They want what would be considered disgusting to be seen as virtuous, and for pushback against their actions to be seen as evil, stupid, uneducated, closed-minded, misogynistic, anything to paint it as bad. With these male feminists in particular, you have to wonder why they accept the gospel, go along with it, and regurgitate it everywhere themselves. Specific examples: feminists saying all men are rapists or have violent rape fantasies, that they hate women, that they have toxic masculinity, the male gaze, that they're inherently evil essentially. If none of that applies to you, why would you agree to it and tell other people to accept it as truth? If it applies to them, it makes sense that they would like to believe, rather than it just being something wrong with themselves as individuals, that is just how all men are. And rather than being something they need to change, it's just some inherent thing you can't ever really change, as an excuse to continue their behavior, to make it seem as if they have no control over themselves in order to alleviate guilt, however rare those moments of guilt may be, and to make their behavior expected, more accepted, and normalized. Obviously, it doesn't apply to all men, it's not inherent, and you ultimately do have control of your actions. Yet they've made arguing against their assertions the actual act of misogyny and everything, or seen as such. On a similar note, for the whole diversity and inclusion thing, if you really truly believe women and people of other races are just as capable mentally as that of your own, why would you want the bar lowered for one group or raised for another? You wouldn't. You would want one standard for everyone. Yet in America, they've lowered the bar for entry into college for certain ethnic groups and raised the bar for entry for other groups. And this is seen as a good, progressive, anti-racist thing. When you get down to it, the only way you could actually think it's good and necessary for women to get into a field not on their merit, but purely because of their gender, it's because you think they couldn't get into it otherwise. And if you didn't lower the standard, that they wouldn't have had a chance to get in. I've seen people get angry about other people thinking someone is a diversity hire when they believe that person really was the best for the job. You could get rid of that problem by just getting rid of diversity hiring, of racial and gender quotas, but for some reason that's not considered an option. Of course, you also have to look at it as having power over these people. You're letting them in, you're giving them special opportunities, right? It's not shocking, for instance, that most of the men in the comics industry seem to be quite a bit older, and yet the women that get hired are very, very young and inexperienced. The companies don't mind because, first of all, the very inexperienced people get paid dirt, rather than someone who's been writing for a very long time and might want a certain amount of money for their work, value themselves, right? And then, of course, they think it's good publicity, that it looks very good and progressive, right? And, of course, women and minorities are a popular shield for these companies, these people, shouting misogyny and racism whenever their product doesn't do well. It's always just a shield for them, even if it doesn't make sense. They also try to encourage the masses of progressive consumers to give them money despite these evil, bigoted people who hate these products purely because of the strong women in them, not because of the quality or anything. Maybe I've gotten too far away from the abuse. Let's look at a progressive gaming community as another example. The competitive Smash community. Yes, these people will virtue signal constantly on social media about how anime is for pedophiles or misogynists, blah blah blah. And then it turns out a ton of them are sexual predators and pedophiles. Even specific people who were virtue signaling about it. Almost like it's just some sort of cover. And it's not exactly shocking that pedophiles would want to promote the events as nice child-friendly places to bring your kids to. Places so full of trustworthy, good people that you could just leave your kids there unattended and they'd take care of them. No matter how often they get outed, no matter how obvious it is, the same song and dance plays out. I guess there's really no alternative strategy for these people, so it's not shocking you see a pattern. Back to Activision Blizzard. Don't worry, this doesn't look like it's going to hurt their bottom line. It didn't with the Blitzchung thing, and it won't now. There are already people spreading the extremely intelligent, feel-good bullshit about it being perfectly fine to be really against everything the company has done from the top down, and is still doing, while still financially supporting them, even now. It's fine to keep paying for that WoW subscription. It's perfectly valid. Oh my god, please don't bully anyone by calling them a hypocrite for pretending to care while still giving them money every single month. And then, of course, most content creators are too tied to it, too dependent on the machine to leave. They'll keep making videos and help keep it relevant. Whether it's the people constantly praising it or criticizing it, they're not going to change course and potentially lose money. Not most of them. And frankly, a lot of them aren't big enough to be financially stable if they tried. It would be a huge gamble, so they'll stay. They'll keep doing what they're doing until it just doesn't work anymore. Eventually, it'll die down to an open secret that is occasionally mentioned and laughed about, while most people don't know the full extent of it.